It's just past the hour of 7, so we're going to make a start. My name is Josh Griffith. I am the chair of Achievement Radio and a broadcaster on there, and author as well, and managing director of Tomorrow Today Community Consultants. And one of our projects, which is why it's great to be an honour to be back here, was overseeing a community consultation for this very building. So I know it quite well, and I still work with Trinity Community Arts Centre as their consultant. So downstairs you will find the toilets at the back, and you can go out through the fire exits down there. See this great behind you arch, and this big refurbishment here from the National Lottery Scheme. That's thanks to some of you who I've met before in the past and consulted and gave you your views into us getting the money. So thank you. Thank you also for putting your time aside. I know everybody's time is precious. And as I said, it's an honour to introduce Sue Mastings and John Riley today. First came across Sue a couple of years ago on the elections for the Police Crime Commissioner. And I've obviously seen her here and back, but formally we were doing a thing called the Citizen Journalists, and getting our young people engaged in local issues such as crime, such as employment, and this case was following the election process. It was the mayor and the PCC as well, which was 2 years ago this November. And all struck me as a person of integrity. I still checked in on that on the case when she was on my show on Gina last week. So we want today, as well as being, as I say, she's local to the area, but you can ask her upon that as well. But part of that, which is why I mentioned Gina and our brothers and sisters and cousins at BCFM, and everybody working in the great creative community arts centre that we have in Bristol, that area. It's about bringing communities together. From our point of view, working as a volunteer and leading an organisation, bringing that conversation closer to the people of power. That's what we're all about. The hidden silent voices such as yours, who don't always get the point of view, or people who can't make the meeting today for the 12 days, so those silent voices. But we'll go out to where they are today. Kaz is in the audience today as part of that. Having those conversations, having that, like I say, with the people of power. In this case, we're talking crime, criminal justice, and all things in and around that today. So, being some of you may have been victims of crime, and by sheer coincidence, I had my phone stolen on Sunday. So I know I've gone through that process, and in the moment of rage, as I felt, I can assure you, I want the death penalty brought back in rather quickly. But in all seriousness, when that happens, we want action. We want the police act straight away. In my case, it's the most important priority. My phone is the most important priority. That's our interaction with the police. But what we need to do is get to a point where we have those conversations. We know that police and policing are difficult. We all know that. Speaking as a former city council officer and manager for 18 years, it's and being on both sides of the divide. Beforehand, say in the 80s, when we had really bad uprising, and stopped and searched often, a really bad attitude towards the police, and then we began working with them to literally poacher turned gamekeeper to prevent antisocial behaviour and the like attacking our communities. And communities want action when that takes place. They may not campaign about it, but because it's not, but they'll come and see you. They'll come into the housing offices, they'll come into the local police offices, they'll tell your community police officers, they'll tell your police PCSOs about the information, about who they are. They're in that house there, or this is the description. That's the informal networks. There's wider networks that we need to build. And that's around gaining confidence. But the authorities, the police service now going from force, putting what I call regular deposits of trust in to create that confidence. When a community has that, they work better with the police. There's that openness and transparency. If it doesn't happen, as we've seen in, say, Tottenham, for instance, where the incident happened, and Tottenham's a place where I'm born just up the road from there, so I know the area well. But so the incident of the Mark Duggan shooting, No one knew what happened. We're going towards police cameras now on the body armours to prevent that. So that transparency would come. Family didn't get the answers that they wanted. Family went back with silence, the doors were shut at the police station, and then we had civil unrest. So that's where it happens, where things break down. We don't want to get to those types of incidents that we had through 80s and just recently in the English riots there. We want those regular conversations, so when things do happen, and they will, okay, because it's not, as I said, policing isn't easy, then we can go to the people powers that we can go to Sue, go to whoever's in charge, and find out what's happening. Recently I've travelled quite extensively for writing my book recently. I've just gone to where my parents are from, Guyana in South America, trip West Indies. Been there, there's issues of corruption with the police, young people, young men particularly, joining the police force just to what we call taxing, take money from stopping people traffic events. In Brazil, where I travelled during the World Cup, there were 2,000 deaths in 212 at the hands of the police. And of course, you just see recently in Ferguson, Missouri, again, where that trust broke down, and people get answers. Worse than that, when the community protested, it turned into some kind of Robocop scenario. So again, this is why the context of why we need forums like this. Again, this is why we need wider conversations amongst the community, people who aren't here today, encouraging surveys, constantly moving forward. To help with that, just to set the scene and set the table for some issues, you've got some local issues, but on the wider context, being victims of crime, as you said, and how you're treated. We know about stop and search. It's certainly from, if you're black, you're more likely to be stopped and searched than you are if you're white, and that continues to go through something we need to tackle. Again, we're working with Mike Pryor on that from the police service, as well as Stopwatch in the UK. We know about the black and minority ethnic, from my community, disproportionately being in prison or within the judicial system. And the lack of representative black policing within the police service, as well as within the judiciary and the magistrates. And finally, we have some great police with our works, as I said. But also, we have some great role models through the Black Police Association who are from the community of the community and continue to serve. So we want to see their role in helping to break down those bridges. Those people are there, Pascal, Beth Douglas, that are there to provide those roles. And those are some of the issues from my point of view that are going forward around those conversations. You all have your own, and I urge you to represent them and put this forward and make sure we have a great question and answers. So, I invite you to say hello to the Chief Superintendent, John Riley, and the Police and Crime Commissioner of Raven Somerset Police, Sue Stevens. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming along and listening to those wise words from Roger. Roger, I was on his show last week, and he was decent enough not to laugh at my music choices as opposed to my children who mocked me. So I appreciate that. I'm really pleased to be back here in Bristol, and my main priority is to listen to the issues that you're concerned about, so that we can make sure that message gets taken right back to the heart of the Constabulary, and that's very much my role as the Police and Crime Commissioner. So I just want to talk a bit about my role as the Police and Crime Commissioner, called PCC for short, about being your voice in policing and how we can work together. Because Roger has said, the communities and the police are much stronger together. And it is by only being together and by listening and by having dialogue together and having conversations, not monologues, but having real conversations, can we be more effective. So I stood for election in November 2012. I stood as an independent. I'd never stood for anything before. I'm not a party politician. And I was very clear that this job should not be run by a party politician. I think running the budget for the police should be completely outside party politics. and therefore that was the reason that I stood. My background is I was part of a bakery business where we started off in St Mark's Road, not very far away from here, and had several shops in Stapleton Road. And I was also a magistrate for 15 years on the adult, youth and family bench. I was also on the monitoring board at Bristol Prison, and then on the police authority for 2 years before it got demolished by the government and replaced by a PCC. So you can see I have a real interest in the criminal justice system, and I hope that by me sharing a few words about what we are doing, what we've done, what we're going to do, I hope that you'll see why I'm so interested. But for me, one of the most important things about being a PCC is being the bridge between you and the police. I'm here to listen, I'm here to try to understand, and to make sure that we drive improvements in the police service. So my role, first of all, is not operational. That is John's role, and that is the Chief Constable's role. I have no direction or control of any officer, PCSO or police staff. That's not to say that on occasions I wouldn't mind being able to put a blue light on my car and go and scare the heebie-jeebies out of someone who's just overtaken me on the motorway, with a mobile phone as well. But I have no extra rights than anyone does. But I do have the budget. And for those of you who have held the household budget, you know that those who hold the purse strings has quite a large degree of influence. And I do have a degree of influence, and that degree I use to influence the police from what you tell me. And that's what I'm going to do. But there's obviously restrictions as well, and that some of those restrictions I will come on to, because I would like to be able to have an infinite pot of money. I would like to have as many officers as you want on the street. I would like to have all the police stations open. I would like to do a load more, but I can't. We have a budget, and it's an ever-decreasing budget. We had to find £35 million savings in the last few years. We have to find nearly £12 million in the next year. And if you go to 2016, 2017, we may have to find another 50 or 60 million pounds. Now, when 80% of the budget are people, that can only mean one thing. That can only mean a smaller workforce. Now, we've already lost about 4,500 officers in the last 4 years. And so what my job is to do is to look and see how we can, by using reserves and by making the money go as far as we can, making sure that officers and staff have the right tools to do the job. If there's going to be fewer people doing the job, we have to make sure they have the technology that helps them. So technology that helps them stay out of stations. If they're in police stations, you can't see them, and they're not giving confidence to our local communities. So I want them to stay out of police stations as much as possible, but that's only possible if we give them the technology. So that's something that I'm going to be doing. So as your PCC, my responsibility is to appoint the Chief Constable and hold him to account. I set a 5-year police and crime plan based on priorities that I've consulted you with. And I also set the police part of the council tax precept. So I went out to consultation over the last summer, and over 75% of those people, over 3,000 people, 75% said that they were prepared to pay more than 2% or more on the council tax precept because of how much they valued their police service. In the end of the day, the government then set a cap, a referendum cap, which means I couldn't go above 2% unless I was going to go for a referendum. A referendum would cost £1 million of your money. I'm not prepared to gamble that. So I had the ridiculous situation that the council tax precept was 1.99%, but that explains a little bit about why it was that. I'm also pleased to say that I also have a community safety grant that that we're now responsible for. And Bristol last year received over £500,000, £549,000, which was double what they received in the year previous to that. And we've been able to fund initiatives such as the LGBT Domestic Outreach Project. We've used restorative approaches to tackling hate crime and bringing police and young people together, so that is what the communities wanted, and that's what we've been able to fund. I'm also here to drive improvements across the criminal justice system. particularly the voice of victims. I think that the criminal justice system has been slightly skewed to the point of working very hard with the perpetrator and supporting the perpetrator. I think there has to be a lot more to make sure we listen to the voice of victims, and I'll tell you a bit about that afterwards. But I have a remit of much wider than the police. I have, it's in the name really, the Police and Crime Commissioner. So it's the fact that of trying to prevent crime, because obviously if we can prevent crime by early interventions, it means that we have fewer victims and fewer people going to prison, so therefore it's a win-win situation. So I'm very keen that we do as much as we can on crime prevention. Then there's the oversight of the police, and there's also the oversight then of the criminal justice system, and that is the courts, probation and prison. So it's a very wide remit, but actually it's a very valuable remit because it means that we can get everyone in the room together, and instead of thinking of their own silos and their own budgets, we can work out ways how we can share budgets, how we can share some of the authorities that we've got in order to deliver a much better service. And that's something I'm driving forward over the next couple of years. But I'm here to connect your views with the police and the wider partners. And one of the reasons I think that PCCs are working, and I would say that, I'm a PCC, so one of the things is the fact of public engagement. So if you look, the PCC replaced the police authority, and in the last year the police authority had about 250 people who contacted them. And I had over 5,000 who contacted me in my first year. So although you may not PCCs, and I know some of you may tell me that we're not terribly useful today, that there is a real hunger out there from people who want to communicate with one person, because it's a lot easier than a committee, with one person who will look at those areas of concern that those individuals have. So I think it's very valuable having a very identifiable person to make that communication. I'm also very committed to making sure that I listen not just to the noisy voices, the ones who know how to lobby people like me, but also to the quiet voices. So I spend one day a week out in the community, actually visiting groups, visiting charities, visiting residents groups, such as I went last week. A couple of weeks ago. I visited Shelter. I went to Life Skills, which is a project teaching children how to be more careful in their communities. I did a drop-in at the galleries so that people can always access me. That's the name of the game. I'm your Police and Crime Commissioner. So I believe it's really important to link those local organisations and going right on the ground and finding out what is going on, to find out what people's concerns are for the police and finding out how they interact with the police, because it's only by listening to you that we can drive improvements. Following consultation with residents, I set the priorities for the Police and Crime Plan. And they were, during the campaign, and they were after consultation, over 80% of those who responded agreed that the priorities that the police should be tackling was antisocial behaviour. There was never a meeting I didn't attend that antisocial behaviour wasn't raised. Burglary, domestic and sexual violence, and putting victims at the heart of everything we do. So Bristol has its own local and tailored police and crime plan. Before, in the years before PCCs, there was one police and crime plan for the whole of Avon and Somerset. I have learnt very quickly that Avon and Somerset is an enormous area, a very diverse area, and very different policing needs. After all, the policing of Minehead and the Quantocks is very different to where we are now. So areas now have their own plans. But one of the things that also came very strongly back to me through my mailbag, was that although they agreed on those 4 priorities, there was an enormous of interest in road safety. People were extremely concerned, and road safety can mean different things to different people. So for some people it can mean speeding through their villages. To many it can mean cyclists on pavements, the road rage that goes on between, particularly in Bristol and Bath, the road rage that goes on between cyclists, pedestrians and motorists and motorbikers. Each group would almost like everyone else dead because they think they own the roads. Well, I can guarantee there will never be enough police to control all the road rage that goes on. But what we must work for is a way that we can get more tolerant of each other. It's a bit like world peace, isn't it? But we do have to find a way that we can do that. We also need to make sure that we have far more community engagement. The police need to support the neighbourhood watches in their area. They need to work much more closely with neighbourhood forums in Bristol, Community Speedwatch, because those groups of people who are really interested in helping the police, they are the bread and butter for the police. And they deserve as much support as the Constabulary can do. Because it's only by empowering communities can we work together. Because you are at the heart of your communities, you know what's going on. And one of the other things that I have noticed is that there are some really key people who keep our communities together. They're almost the gel that keep small groups, charities, organisations, very regular meetings for vulnerable people together. And so one of the things I've done is I've launched a Pride Award for those individuals that are nominated by other people. And it's really just a public recognition for a pat on the back. And if you're interested, we've got some things outside, some notices outside. I've also launched a community action fund where we've put in £200,000 in each year from the proceeds of the Crime Act dividends that we put in for communities to come together. So if you are a small group with some really great ideas, therefore, want of a small amount of money, a grant up to £5,000, you can get something up and running. And that's one of the things that came out on this community days that I spend, that you've got some really inventive, really innovative ideas, and if we can seed prime that, then we will do so. So again, we've been able to, Bristol's benefited £139,000 from the last year, and that's gone supporting reducing antisocial behaviour, initiatives at improving community cohesion at a local level, raising awareness of violence against women, particularly FGM. So, again, if you are interested, talk to any of my team that are here tonight, because you know far better than we do about the initiatives that we should be supporting. This next year is very important to us. We are now going to be responsible for funding support services for victims. And so from October of this year, we are launching 3 hubs across Avon and Somerset, where we will have almost bespoke and tailored services to victims who are persistently targeted, who are vulnerable. Victims who tell me that they sometimes don't, the police are not great in their follow-up, so don't go back and tell them what's happened. I also get victims who tell me that they can be approached 8, 10, sometimes up to 30 times by different organisations who know nothing about what they've told the previous person. And getting that joined up approach is really important. So we have an integrated victims hubs that will be starting where local authorities, where charities and all voluntary organisations and police staff will be getting together and making sure that we support those victims. The criminal justice system is a very complex process, and you need all the help that you can get, especially if you're vulnerable. So that is something that we will be starting. You will have seen that we are going to be, we have looked at the police buildings across the whole of Avon and Somerset, and where we have now got centralised custody suites, which we will be moving into in later this month, that we will be closing down the custody suites, such as at Trinity, which means that the actual police station at Trinity is now too large for what we need. So we are looking at relocating. At the moment we haven't found a site, and we will not be closing Trinity Road Police Station until there is that site. But we are looking and talking to making sure that the police footprint stays in this area. That is absolutely key. I get that message. I've been to neighbourhood forums where that message came across very, very clearly, and the Constabulary understand that as well. But in the long term, we cannot keep half-empty buildings. We haven't got the money. We haven't got the finance. And what we do, and what money we do have, has to go and making sure we have as many officers, PCSOs and police staff that we have, rather than keeping half-empty buildings. Now, you may not agree with that, but that is, I think, the way forward. So that's briefly what I have done, what I'm going to do. I think on a positive note, I want to tell you that the confidence in the Constabulary is the highest it's ever been. So according to the British Crime Survey, and I know some of you may be scathing of many of the surveys, but the British Crime Survey is the independent police crime survey, that 79% of people are confident in Avon and Somerset Police. Now that is an amazing achievement. That's the highest that the police have ever achieved, which means that Avon and Somerset Constabulary have moved from 35th in the country to 6th in the country. It's not a subject that we will ever be complacent about, and we will probably go up and down depending on what hits the various areas. But I hope that shows that we, with the Police and Crime Commissioner and the Constabulary, that we want to be as open and transparent, not be defensive, admit when we make mistakes, and then have that communication, which is a real communication, not just a monologue one way or the other. So I hope that's given you a bit of insight into what I do. I want you to be as open and honest and constructive here tonight. And we'll now listen to John, who will talk about Bristol. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. I'm going to stand up. Is it okay if I don't use a microphone? I've got a bit of a bigger voice. Can people at the back hear me? I'm quite happy to use a microphone. Is that okay? If you can't hear me at any point, stick your hand up. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Chief Superintendent John Riley. I'm the Area Commander for Bristol. I was appointed to this role in January of this year, so I've only been in post 8 months, but I'm not new to Bristol. I've got 17 years service with Avon and Somerset Constabulary, and nearly all of that time has been spent in Bristol. I think I've worked at every police station, I've worked at every rank in the city, I've been in a number of either uniformed or detective roles. So I do know the city quite well. I moved here, probably, dare I say, 22 years ago to study, and I like the city so much that I decided to stay. And I still live here with my wife and children, and I'm absolutely privileged to kind of lead Bristol Police, and given the opportunity, I'm absolutely thrilled about. So why did I stay in Bristol? Just a few facts about Bristol, if that's okay. It's clearly a very significant city in the southwest. It's one of 8 core cities nationally. The current population is a bit over 440,000, and it increases every year. On top of that, we have about 50,000 students that sort of bulk that population up every year as well. It's quite a polarised city. We've got some of the most wealthy wards and some of the most deprived wards in the country sitting alongside each other. In addition to that, it's the most diverse city outside of London. There's 91 different languages spoken in Bristol, which I think is amazing, and that's probably something, the appeal of the city actually, that there's so many different people here that makes such a great place. It's also a major retail centre, a major centre for retail, business and finance. There's a lot going on in the city, but with that comes a lot of challenges with policing. We're obviously very significant within Avon and Somerset, so 42% of all crime within the force occurs in Bristol, which is 40,000 incidents a year. And for antisocial behaviour, 37% occurs in the city, which is about 28,000 incidents a year. So how are we structured to deliver against those demands? So I'm sorry it's a bit small actually, I thought the screen grew bigger. If you can make that out, if not I'll put some markers out. We've broken the area into 3 local policing areas. Funnily enough, northwest, east and south, and these are aligned to council boundaries, which facilitate partnership working much better. I've marked on there also the main stages at the moment. I'll come on to that. I know Sue spoke about the police station estate, but I just want to touch on that as well in a moment. Now, each local policing area is headed by a uniformed chief inspector who commands our resources in relation to response policing and neighbourhood policing. Now, the response officers are those that effectively work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, responding to calls for demands of service. Our neighbourhood staff will also respond to demands of service, but their primary function is really problem solving in the communities in which they serve. They work in smaller beat areas and they're responsible for that community and work alongside police community support officers as well. So in addition to the uniformed resources, I also oversee our criminal investigation department, which is primarily our non-uniformed officers, detectives, looking at serious and major crime, volume crime, burglary, vehicle crime, and also some of our intelligence functions. So it's quite a wide range that I have to lead at the moment. Now the establishment is 800 police officers, 110 police community support officers, 140 special constables, we've got over 60 police cadets at the moment as well. So it's quite a large range of officers across the city. Now our current estate means we have 4 response bases. So we've got South Mead Road up in the north-west, the Bridewell facilitating the city centre, Trinity Road just across the road from us today, and Broadway Road in the south. There's also some neighbourhood hubs as well. Now I know there's been some concern and speculation around the future police estate, and as Sue said, you know, we have got to look at our establishment because we've got new custody centres opening in Cambridge, Patchworth and Bridgewater, which frankly are going to replace quite an ageing cell sort that we've got at the moment in the city. And our police stations are too big and they're expensive to heat and light, so we need to be careful about, you know, how we use our money. Now, Broadway Road will remain where it is. The Southmead Road and Trinity Road, as Sue said, will need to relocate. I think it's been quite clear in the press. People said police stations are going to close. Now, we are not withdrawing from communities. We absolutely understand that the public want to see a presence, a police presence in the communities in which they live. So if Trinity Road isn't going to be on that existing site, it will need to be very, very nearby, almost in the immediate vicinity. We have looked at certain premises. If they're not suitable, we're not going to jump immediately. So please be reassured that we remain in that presence will remain. We're not going to be withdrawing from the city. So, with this structure, how are we performing? A bit of a history lesson here, I suppose. I appreciate again the graphs are quite small, but on the left-hand side it shows our 16-year total crime, the blue line at the top. And I think in both graphs, so the right-hand side is serious acquisitive crime, which I'll come on to, but in both graphs you can see that big spike in 2002. And that was when crack cocaine hit the streets of Bristol. And we were recording 80,000 crimes a year at that time. Now last year, which is the bottom of the graph, it was 40,000 crimes. So we've reduced by 50% in that period. If we look at serious acquisitive crime, the falls have been much greater as well. The green line is serious acquisitive crime, which is house burglary, robbery and vehicle crime. The blue line is domestic burglary, the red line is theft of motor vehicle, and the purple line is robbery. And you can clearly see the reduction there as well. Clearly the spike, but big reductions. So compare with other core cities, I said Bristol was one of 8 core cities, how do we compare? So for total crime, per 1,000 population, we're about in the middle, we're somewhere in the middle. For serious acquisitive crime, we're actually second, only Newcastle has got a better rate per 1,000 population. Actually the reductions we've seen have put us in a really good position nationally as well. So why that? Why the big reduction in serious acquisitive crime? Well, personally I think it's something to do with impact, which is our multi-agency offender management programme. We've pulled together resources from the police, probation, prison and drug services to really tackle the most prolific offenders in the city, to share information and to problem solve and identify pathways out of crime for those individuals. So by managing offenders, we've managed to reduce the crime significantly. When I speak about 40,000 crimes, that can sound quite a large number, but if we try and put it into a bit of perspective. So on a 24-hour period across the whole city, we record less than 6 domestic burglaries in a 24-hour period. We record less than 2 robberies. We record less than 8 vehicles broken into. So whilst the total for the year sounds large, actually on a daily basis it's very small for a city. And actually, that's that factor that we need to get out because people's theory of crime is much, much greater perhaps than the actual reality. So, that's kind of Bristol, the history. How did we do last year? So just looking at the kind of the headline figures, total crime remained stable actually. It was pretty much the same as it was the year before, 40,000 crimes. However, serious acquisitive crime continued to fall by approximately 8%, which was 554 fewer victims of crime. We continue to improve the number of offenders brought to justice as the number of crimes have been solved, and that was at nearly 32% last year. The satisfaction figures have increased to nearly 90% for victims of crime, 82% for victims of antisocial behaviour. Now, I appreciate, we're not complacent about that. I don't want to have any victims of crime. I want the satisfaction figures high, but that's a really good progress we've made over the last 12 months. So this is that sort of a general overview. How are we doing against the priorities that the Police and Crime Commissioner has set us? Now, Sue identified already that what they were: tackling domestic and sexual abuse, preventing and reducing burglary, reducing the impact of antisocial behaviour, and putting victims at the heart of criminal justice. So, for 2013-14, how did we do? Now, tackling domestic and sexual abuse, our ambition is to increase confidence amongst victims, to report abuse, and improve the services they receive. We know that these are significantly under-reported crimes. Actually, whilst I've spoken about trying to reduce crime, actually we're trying to increase reporting in this area. Fundamentally, so we can provide intervention and support for those victims. It may not be that the criminal justice outcome is the best outcome for the victim, but unless it's reported, we can't signpost and bring that help to victims. So, how have we done this? We've had an increase in the reported domestic abuse and serious sexual assault, and also an increase in the number of detected serious sexual offences. We have dedicated specialist investigation teams, and the recognition that they're now going to be rolled out across the board, not just in Bristol. We've also done some external media campaigns called No Excuse in conjunction with the City Council. We've organised additional training for our staff to raise awareness of the victims' needs and indicators of risk. And also we've had some new legislation this year, domestic violence protection notices, which where there is no criminal justice outcome, where we haven't been in a position to charge an offender and it's necessary to protect the victim, we can put in place some short-term measures which are then backed up by the magistrate's court for a longer time, some control measures, almost like conditions, to prevent victims being contacted or harassed or offenders coming in a certain distance to their home address. So that's been really useful this year. Moving on to burglary. As you can see, there's been a reduction in offending, 527 fewer victims of burglary last year, and an increase in the numbers brought to justice. Again, we have dedicated teams for burglary investigation, ensuring high quality and timely investigations. We attempt to get officers to all burglaries within an hour, and with a prompt follow-up from crime scene investigators. I've already mentioned impact, that robust management of offenders, and also tackling the stolen property market. We ran an operation last year, really targeting burglars and those that handle stolen property. We disrupted a big organised group there and resulted in 48 people being charged over 200 offences, that disruption. We also pushed very hard for people to register their property to be mobilised, that if we recover it, we can return it to you, but also so we can track items. If something's stolen, there's tracking software on there, we can quickly dispatch an officer, get the goods back, but also pick up the person who's committed that offence. That's been really effective this year. And one thing I would say about burglary is that victim satisfaction for burglary is even higher than it is for overall crime. Amongst the highest in the country, 94% satisfied. Now again, a satisfied victim isn't what I want to hear. I want to hear that no crime has happened, but it is indicative of the performance that we're achieving at the moment. Moving on to antisocial behaviour, again increases. Overall satisfaction rates have increased for antisocial behaviour up to 82%, and the percentage of ASB cases for the result has also increased. Now again, they're not quite where we want them to be, and there's further work being done on this, but we are making progress. We're working with partner agencies to better protect vulnerable people. We have a number of dedicated operations that run across the city. More locally here, we've had operations in Stapleton Road, and we've been tackling some of the vice issues as well nearby. There's a range of sanctions that are used, from warning letters to antisocial behaviour orders, and those powers are going to be simplified actually next month. I'll be working with Safer Bristol later this week to work out the introduction of those across the city. And all reports of ASB should be followed up by the local policing team, and the person who's called it in should be advised of what's happened in that case. And then finally, putting victims at the heart of the criminal justice process. I've already mentioned it, victim satisfaction just below 90%. We've seen real improvements in this area. Victims of crime are regularly updated by investigating officers. And as part of our supervisory reviews to ensure compliance in this way, we also survey victims and we get their verbatim comments back. And we feed those back directly to the officers, both positive and negative, so they can really understand what their actions meant to victims and how we can improve that service. We continue to invest in the process called Track My Crime, which is an online system, which means victims can look in real time at the progress of their investigations. We also have a Safer Home scheme, where carpenters have visited vulnerable victims of crime over 1,000 times last year and given security advice and provided locks and bolts where necessary. And Sue's touched on the integrated victim care unit that's going to come online next month, which will further enhance this service. But over and above, just one thing I want to touch on before I finish. It's probably something that Roger mentioned and Sue's mentioned as well. It's really around, we're very good at what we do, but it's how we do it as well. We're very clear that we need to deliver the objectives that Sue set us, as well as to continue to reduce crime. Actually, I want my staff to focus on how they deliver that service, and we have some values in the established which we put up there. And they're actually very simple but powerful statements, and I actually believe they're absolutely fundamental to what we do. Public first, quality counts, professional, friendly and interested, and today's business today. Now, there's two colleagues in the audience and they'll know that I have every opportunity to try and highlight those to my staff. It's absolutely vital that the officers working in Bristol really care about the communities that they serve. I'm committed to making sure that we do listen to you. I accept that sometimes we will get it wrong. But actually, as Sue said, without your help, we're not going to get, we're not going to get the city to be a better place. It's about the community involvement and everyone coming together. I really want you to be proud of the police in Bristol. What you see nationally in the media around other parts of the country, I want you to think, well, I don't recognise that as a service that we get in Bristol. This is your police service. Whilst I'm in charge, I'll absolutely do my best to make sure that's what happens. Thanks very much for listening. Questions?
Okay, so it's now over to you. Tom will have a mic. If you can make your questions brief so that we can get through as many as possible, and if there's anything that's specific with too much detail, then we will take those afterwards. All right. So if we could, if anyone would like to be brave enough to do the first question.
Thanks, Chair. That's the description that the media gives.
Sorry, I think you'll need to use that.
Okay. Yes, the description we've been given by the media of the crime and inefficiency in Rotherham. Have we looked closely at that and taken an example from them and changed anything in our own administration or our own activity towards preventing these crimes?
Let me just, I'll answer the as far as Rotherham is concerned. I think you make a very valid point. I've read the Rotherham report, and I think one of the things we've always got to remember is that we've...
Excuse me, I'm sorry, you're now competing with...
Yeah. I've read the Rotherham report, and one of the issues about that is that I don't want to say that it is as bad everywhere else, but let's be very clear that what went on in Rotherham is just not happening in Rotherham. And I think we just need to appreciate that. I just would like to say there's one line in the Rotherham report which I just want to repeat, because I think it is so damning, and the fact that we need to take on board and be very and work out what our next step is. But in the report it says, the police gave no priority to child sexual exploitation, regarding many child victims with contempt and failing to act on their abuse as a crime. Now, I'm not prepared to be the Police and Crime Commissioner of an area that would be said about Avon and Somerset. So what I've asked the Chief Constable to bring forward a group of leaders as quickly as possible, hopefully in the next week or so, which will be the local authorities, which will be the police, the safeguarding boards for children and for adults, Bernardo's and other organisations, because the issue about Rotherham was that it was not the police officers and social workers on the ground that didn't know about this problem. It was the leaders who decided that it was being over-exaggerated and that there wasn't a step. So I want to bring everyone around that table and be very ruthless and being honest about what does everyone know about Avon and Somerset. So that's how we are going to drive it forward and make sure that we look very hard at that report in full, so that we can make sure that we can very quickly learn the lessons and do an action plan which we will go public on.
Yes, thank you. That's only the change I wanted to hear, and the action you're going to take.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
That does describe the change you want to make and the action you're going to take. So I'm pleased to hear it from you.
Thank you.
Like John, I'm not sure if I need a microphone. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. I'm currently one of the squatters living around the back of Trinity Road Police Station, and we've been concerned about the rumours for a long time that Trinity Road Police Station is going to shut. I think it's currently moving to only being open during office hours and not going to be open at night time and things like that. I've been knocking around Bristol, mostly East Bristol, sometimes Dover, sometimes Scotland, sometimes not, for slightly more than 22 years. And I've seen the big difference that bad policing's made to the area, or when the police have lost control of East Bristol, and good policing when the police came back in and retook the area. It's not always been perfect by any means. I've had good and bad experiences with the police in Trinity Road, but I really fear for what's going to happen to the community when it's shut. I don't see that a smaller, relocated police station with no custody suite, shut inside office hours, fewer officers, is really going to deliver what the community needs. And I think we're heading for trouble in the long run. It's a complicated area, and the spreadsheets and the crime statistics and stuff might say that we need this number of officers working this number of hours. But I live around here and have done for a long time. I I don't think it's going to work out well for East Bristol to Bristol in the long run.
Just to pick up on a couple of points there, there will be no reduction in the number of neighbourhood officers across the city at all. And actually our custody centres offer us an opportunity to co-locate officers for prisoner handling. So when an officer makes an arrest, they can take the detainee to one of these custody centres and immediately come back out onto the streets. So the visibility should be higher rather than them coming into custody at Trinity and that tying the officer up and dealing with them there. I accept your point around concern around the police station, and I just need to reiterate again, it's not going to close. The footprint at Trinity Road is probably 50% cells, which will become redundant, and that's very expensive for us to maintain. We've got that large site, and actually it's more efficient for us to be in a smaller building and enable us to employ more staff to be out on the ground. Now, there's been a police station at Trinity Road probably for 100 years, and probably for good reason, because it's sorry? 180. So more. There's been a police station there, but for good reason, because it's in the right place, and we recognise that. And I just want to reiterate again that we're not withdrawing from the community. And if we do relocate, I want to use the word relocate rather than close, because close sounds like we're packing up shop and moving out and you won't see the police again. There will be a response base in East Bristol. It will be very close. If it can't be on that current site, which looks unlikely because of the size of the site, because as Sue said, I don't want my officers filling up a police station. They should be out working on the streets, and mobile days will allow us to do that. So it's only very small periods of time when there's large numbers of officers in the station at handover at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they finish the night shift and the day shift are going out. That's about the only time when there's large numbers in there. So we don't need a big office, but we will be keeping a presence locally.
I don't think I'll need the microphone. My name's Steve Baker. I have a guitar shop outside Trinity Road.
Sorry, can everyone hear? No. Would you mind using the microphone?
Hi, I'm Steve Baker. I have the guitar shop outside Trinity Road Police Station. I've been there for 30 years, which I think makes me longer serving in the area than any police officer in there. You say you're interested in vulnerable people. Don't believe a word of it. That police station is the only police station in the whole of Bristol that every citizen in Bristol knows where it is, where to find it. It is sanctuary. You move it 100 yards, you will have a tragedy. You will have a murder. Already, there are people turning up at 8 o'clock at night looking for help. I saw an African lady 3 or 4 nights ago, 6-month-old baby in her arms, 18-month-old baby by her side. She got there at 8:30. A woman doesn't turn up at 8:30 at night unless there's something like domestic violence going on. I couldn't tell her where to go because Broadmead's closed as well. None of us know where Patchway is. I'm a Bristolian born and bred and I couldn't find it. You have to keep that police station, whether you sell off the yard. By the way, I don't think we've had value for money. You spent £12 million on it, or £10 million, less than 10 years ago, building the bigger cell block. And as we understand it, your current cell blocks are currently not fit for human habitation.
So do start.
I'll reiterate again, the presence will not be lost, and I think I probably would say 100 yards is close enough for people to know where it is, but I take your point. I'm not expecting people to go to Patchway. Patchway is not a place for members of the public to attend. That's a place where we keep detainees that need to be detained and interviewed. So there's no expectation for members of the public to go to Patchway. Well, that's why we need to keep a local police station and not sending people up to Patchway. The question about the front office is a very good one. It's something that we're looking to explore further now. You raised the point that it closes at 8 o'clock in the evening. We need to fit the need of the community with what we can do. So this is the coming to listen. Sorry?
More and more bail officers open in the area. More and more drugs, more and more drug addicts. That can improve. When do you think they kick off? Believe me, it's long after 8 o'clock at night and long before 7 o'clock in the morning.
The front office is just one facility. Obviously, there's still police officers working from Trinity Road. And it's not a question...
That's why they missed the road outside my door 4 weeks ago, is it?
I couldn't comment on that individual circumstance. But I just need to reiterate, if the front office is shut, then there will be a hatch phone available for members of the public to use.
That phone goes through the quarter sector, they don't even know where West is.
PS2.
Well, they will do, but if there's gaps in our service that need to be filled, then that's why we're here to listen.
And that phone was smashed up 2 weeks ago, I believe for a week, because somebody was so frustrated that he couldn't get through the front office door to report crime.
One of the areas that we are talking about at the moment is monitoring on the phones that are outside the police stations, and we're actually looking to see whether we maybe have a video and making it a safe area. I take what you're saying on board, and I think what we have got to do is try to make as the area as safe as we possibly can. But
I have seen everything from first death, gunshots and riots I've had over the years. And I'm telling you now that at some point you will need a defendable building which you've already got. Wherever you relocate to, you will be wasting money trying to fortify a building that wasn't designed to be fortified. I've seen it all more than once out there, and whether I'm there or not is of no consequence. I genuinely think you will have tragedies if you move that police station because everybody knows where to find it.
yes, I mean, we're obviously not going to agree, but the point issue is here, is that we are not going to close Trinity until we have found a site very close. I've already walked around this area with the councillors trying to work out which is some good places to be, but we're not going to go very far. And the important message is that until we find somewhere, we are not closing Trinity Road Police Station. So, this gentleman, Tom.
You've already said that Patchway, where the new cell's going to be, is not a place where the public are going to be expected to find anything. I work alongside Bristol Refugee Rights and the refugee and asylum seeker community in this part of Bristol. Our understanding is that people who sign on regularly at Trinity Road are going to be expected to do so at Patchway. Now, the community thinks this is because it's going to be easier for you to lock them up if you decide to detain them there. But if they can't find it, because it's very difficult to find, for anybody from Bristol it's difficult enough to find, it would be very difficult to find and to access on public transport from people mostly who live in this community and in St Paul's. And secondly, if you say it's not a place where the public are expected to go, how come people, because they come from a different background and are seeking asylum or refuge in this country, are expected to go there?
Well, I suppose when I spoke about the public not attending, I was speaking from a policing perspective. That's the UK Border Agency that use our front office for that purpose. And I think that's something I need to take up with them around moving up to the Patchway site, because that's not something that we, as the police service, do, but we assist them by them using our front office. Now, if they're moving up to Patchway, that does raise some questions that you posed, and I'd have to come back to you on that.
It's very important you do, because it's a very important issue in this area.
Perhaps I could take your details after the meeting. We can get in touch with UKBA.
My point is the same. I'm for signing support. And microphone, please. Is that better? Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes, I picked up this, asylum seekers are not normal members of the public. And we've been told that they have to travel, it's about 8 miles from here. Some of them have no money at all. They've been given walking directions today, and they've also been given directions from Patchway train station. And I tried that. I couldn't understand the directions very well myself, but I speak English, so I was able to ask the way. And it was about a mile walk. It's true that the buses serve it better, but it's really impossible if you have no money. And it's just crazy.
Okay, you put the question in earlier to us, and we will make sure that we take this up with the border agency. It's not a police issue as such,
Well-
but as the Police and Crime Commissioner, I will make sure that that message gets through to the border agency and find out what they can do.
Well, that's good. But when I spoke to the Home Office people today in the police station, they said it's a police matter.
It's not a police matter, and I just want to clarify, I didn't say that asylum seekers were normal members of the public at all. I just said that members of the public wouldn't be expected, from a police perspective, to access our custody sites. Now, if the UK Border Agency are requesting asylum seekers to attend there, then that's a matter we need to look into, but it's not a police matter, that's UK Border Agency.
Well,
As I said, I'll come back to you on that matter.
okay, thank you.
Can everybody hear what I'm saying? My name is Paul Hodge. I'm a retired sergeant. I joined Bristol Constabulary in 1966, and I was on duty day one of Avon and Somerset Constabulary. I support this gentleman over here 100%. I support this guy here, and everybody else is talking about Trinity Road Police Station. To even contemplate closing it is a crime in itself, if you excuse the pun. We're the Bristol City Police. You've just mentioned, sir, that we've got a population of 500,000. All these points that are being made are very, very important. If you can honestly sit there, both of you, and say that you're going to close Trinity Road Police Station, which has been in existence for all the years that have been mentioned, then I, for one, will find it incredibly unbelievable that you can even contemplate it. I know about you have to save budget. I know about the things that in relation to officers. But to contemplate not having it open 24/7, 365 days a year, and making use of the cells, I think you are making a huge mistake, and I support this guy 100%. The building is actually built with no windows, and that was done for a particular purpose. It is a haven, and when people need help, they should be able to go and knock on the door of the police station and receive it, and it doesn't matter who they are. I'm here to support my grandchildren who are growing up. I now live in London, but I did 30 years and 79 days and 19 as a sergeant, and I think, sir, you are wrong.
It's nice to see it, Ollie, but I'd also reiterate that we're not going to close Trinity Road, and I think your view that it's no windows is actually not what I want from a modern police station. It should be a building where the community can come and interact with us, not seen as a...
It was built for a reason.
I know, but at that time, things were different.
Sorry, do you want to?
Yeah, last year. We can't hear you.
Okay, so you just have to wait a second.
What is disappointing for me, last year you put a planning application on to cut the only tree that was in Grants Lane by the fence of the police station. So clearly for you, the security of the station is more important than other things for the community. So you have taken active actions to protect that building 9 months ago, and now you're telling that it doesn't matter if there are windows, or actually you want windows.
No, I understand what you're saying. I think there's a balance though, isn't there, between us having to have some security around the police building, but also being an open and accessible site for the public as well, because as you come around the corner towards the police station, it does look quite like a fortress almost. And maybe some members of the community might think that's a good thing. Actually, that's a nice, solid feel to the community that we can see where the police are based, and that helps us. But for others, it wouldn't be that wouldn't be the case. So we have to do everything. I wasn't aware of the tree, but if we have had to do it for security, you'd think we could trim the branches rather than cut the whole thing down. But I wasn't aware. So.
It's the one where
Sorry, can we just let's talk about Trinity for a moment. I think what needs to be said though is that we have a reducing budget, and although you may not want to hear that, that is what happens. Now, if we are, if we were to consider keeping Trinity Road Police Station open, that means we would have a half-empty building, which would cost a significant amount of money, and we would have to get rid of more officers and staff. Now, it's not a great position to be in. I would much rather we weren't in that position. But for every £1 million that we can save on a building, we can keep an extra 22 officers. Now, people tell me that they want to see police officers, they want more visibility of their police officers on the street, and we cannot, and it seems to me that if there are half-empty buildings, because we are moving custody, the custody will be moving at the end of this month into much newer and fit-for-purpose cells, which will comply with all the Home Office legislation. If we are doing that, then to keep half-empty buildings, but with even fewer officers, doesn't seem to comply with what people actually want from me, is to have more officers on the street.
Good evening. Everyone hear me? We're talking about closure of Trinity, or the increasing shutdown of it. You mentioned quite a bit about the budget. Is it 47 million you're saving so far? And you talked from 2016, you've got to save 50 to 60 million. The two new builds, Keynsham and Patchway, they're private finance initiatives. I'm a local resident. I'm presently renovating an empty building that's been empty for 20 years. Likewise, I've been in the area for a number of years, squatting empty commercial buildings. My concern is with increasing privatisation of our local police force. The loss of the local relationships you have with the officers on the beat, and with possible introduction of companies, private companies like Serco or G4S taking over more operations. That's my concern.
Okay, let me just first of all explain to you that I had the choice, which was put to me from the Constabulary, about whether we were going to use private organisations to be responsible for custody. And I did not, it was not a strong enough business case, and I turned that down. Okay, so as far as custody is, that is still police staff. That is still being run by police staff. It's not being run by G4S, Serco, or any of the other bodies. As far as the PFI buildings are concerned, that is a building that is facilitated by a private organisation, but it is still run by police staff and police officers that are in there. It is only the sheer facilities that are made of a private organisation. But I also want to be clear, because I am asked this, am I going to say forever that no parts of the Constabulary will have some done by private companies? And I'm not going to say that, because we've got to get to the point where we have to have a balanced budget. I can't get a mortgage. I have to balance the budget. That's what a PCC does. And if it means that we can outsource some minor areas, then we will look at it case by case. But I can assure you that under my watch there will be no core police functions that will be outsourced. Stephen, I think we're putting in the mic once and they're taking it more again.
Thank you very much, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, actually I want to come back to the issue before we talk about the asylum seeker and refugee. When we going to sign for the UK Border Agency every week or every month or any time. Actually, this is a very serious issue, which I get messages from my friends. Now I want to pass to you and I want to let you know about it. Some of my friends, seriously, they get the letter last sign and they ask them next time they should be in Patchway police station to give in report to UK Border Agency. Despite they are focusing for that most of those people, they've been destitute, they have no any income, or they can't work, and they have no right to work. It means them pockets empty, they have no expenses to pay for bus or taxi or anything. And another point I want to pass, some of the asylum seekers, they are family, they have children, they can't take this long way to go to Patchway and to do sign for UK border agency. It's make them life difficult. It's really they can't do it. And they're gonna miss the sign, and next time UK Home Office gonna make negative decision with some cases. Another thing, the asylum seeker, some of them, they have mental issue, which is quite difficult to go to Patchway and to do sign to find police station. Another part of the asylum seeker, they are ill, they have serious illness, they are disabled. With all of them means they can't go to Patchway police station. We want, like asylum seeker, sorry, I want to finish my, we want, like asylum seeker, to ask to ask the Home Office or UK Border Agency to take this point serious. Because we want to continue with the process, with the system. We want to, because all of us, we are waiting for the Home Office decision. And as a side...
Okay, let me just say to you,
yeah.
The UK Border Agency does not come under my remit, but I have assured your colleague that I've heard these messages very loud and clear, and I will write to the UK Border Agency, and I will write to the Home Secretary and explain the concerns about this. But that's all I can do. This is not something that I have any power to do, but I listen to what you're saying, and I can understand the distress that going to Patchway may well do. But that's something that I will do. But I cannot guarantee anything else, because it's not part of my role. I'm sorry.
Actually, I want to say that as well. Today we talking about budget. We want to spend less money, and we want to serve good to the people, and to, without you, make the people life harder. If the people go to Patchway police station, they need money which they have not. Should the other organization like Bristol Refugee Right, like a Borderlands charity, like Bristol Defense Asylum Seeker, City of Century in Bristol, all of them, they should collect the money and spending for that issue. And in the other hand, as the gentleman officer, he said, because he been a lot of branch in Bristol, and he know very well there is a lot of branch around here. You can't find the room for the UK Border Agency and give it to them, because they have 3 days every week asylum seeker, or every month they go to there to give in the report.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks
and
so
if you give your details, if you'd like to give your details to my team, then they will follow up and come back to you. Margaret wants to make a comment.
I was just going to quickly add it. Sue's off to right, but it might be helpful to try and facilitate some sort of meeting quite quickly by the sounds of things with the Patchway side. Quite soon, if I could try and organise that between the charity groups and UKBA, that might be quite helpful.
Thank you, Sue. I do hear that you have heard the gentleman over there. What I'm just wondering is whether you could actually do more than what you've said. And a possibility could be that you could connect with your other fellow police and crime commissioners, in other cities where actually this issue is probably quite similar, that it causes enormous stress. And I'm just wondering whether actually a whole cohort of you could actually write to the border control and to the police and almost get some publicity on it or something, to actually put some pressure, because it is inhuman what we are expecting people to do, and we also need to show compassion to people who actually have suffered so much before they even come to this country, and to continue that suffering here, I think is just shocking. And I know that I can see about Patchway and everything. I don't even know where Patchway is actually. All I know is it's a long way away. But I just think that we need to do more than... I really appreciate what you say about writing to the board, but I think we need to think wider than that, because this is actually a situation that is impacting on so many people in this country. And it needs to be seen to be that people like you are really compassionate. And I also think with regard to Trinity Road, I know all about these budgets and everything, but I think that there has to be a place of haven where people can come to from this community 24/7. I mean, if it has to be that Trinity Road shuts, which it might have to be if you can't get people to go in there to pay rent and things, if it has to be that, then actually it has to be somewhere that's accessible and actually is open 24/7, because that place of haven is so crucial to a community that actually is suffering so much.
I think you make a very good point, Margaret, and I think maybe that we've got signing support here, and maybe what we should do is actually get together for a meeting so that we can then work out how we can then tackle in other cities. Would that be a good idea? So if you contact my team afterwards, and then we can make contact. All right? Okay. Roger, do you want to say something?
Thanks. I've got a question for you both, really, just a double-pronged question. So, what has been done to educate officers about the community that they serve? And that's for John. And Sue, what has been done to make the Avon Somerset Police Service more representative of the community it serves?
Clearly, it's a big challenge for us. As I said at the beginning, 91 different languages spoken in the city, and the most diverse outside of London. All staff on their initial training are given some input into that around diversity and also understand different communities. But we also work quite closely with charities. I know SARI quite recently have done some training with our staff around that in particular. We have a training cycle for uniformed staff where probably every 10 weeks they have a training day and it has a different theme. And more recently, SARI have come in and assisted with that. On top of that, there's some further training that's going on actually across the force. I think there was a recent one at headquarters, one down in Taunton, where they're not looking at just at race issues, but also for disableist crime and other community groups within the force area. So it's something that we have to constantly be watchful of and mindful of.
I am concerned that the force is not representative of the diversity of our communities, and which is why the Chief Constable, Nick Gargan, when he was Chief Constable, was we got an academic to come in, Dr. Marie-Annick Gone, to come in and actually work out what we could do better to improve our processes, to make sure that if people did apply, that we were reflecting what was the diversity of the community. And we've now got to the stage where we have different tests for those processes, and they are now in consultation with a lot of the communities in order to make sure that those processes are in place. The really sad thing, of course, is that even if we got the most perfect process and we got far more people from BME communities in the police force, which of course is what the senior officers and myself want. Because we are recruiting so few, it is going to take forever. Because with the cuts, we have a small number of people that we are recruiting. But what we've got to do is make sure that of those that we are recruiting, that we have process in place so that the new cohorts coming in are representative of our communities.
I'll just add, it goes wider than just police officer recruitment. Obviously, police staff, police community support officers and cadets, and I would encourage volunteers, I'd encourage anybody that wants to come and join us all and see more about what we do. We do ride-along schemes. I know a couple of people in here I've invited along to those. But it's important that we really do reflect the communities that we serve. And it's not just in police officers, there's a whole host of different roles that people could undertake within the Constabulary.
That'd be great if we could get that kind of supported, and you know, as I mentioned the Black Police Association earlier, and you know, more talks and working locally with the community. And the final thing I'll say from BCFM and Regime, I can't quite offer you mates rates, but you know, advertised on community media is a great thing.
Sorry, can I just very quickly say, just in relation to that point you make about our lack of diversity in the policing, I volunteered to mark the PCSO applications that came into the police, and it was really quite sad actually. There were lots of people on there, about 4 or 5 applications from the Somali community who they speak 5 languages, they're clearly very intelligent people. It just couldn't fill out the application properly. So when the question asked to give an example about something, they just said they could speak 5 languages, but didn't answer the question, so we had to pick sift them out, which is really quite frustrating because we've gone out, we've encouraged people to apply, and then they're struggling to fill out the form. So I've got a meeting with the Black Police Association next week, because I made contact with them to say that, with Colonel Singh, to say, you know, this cannot be right. We need to help these people who want to join the police to make us more diverse, help them through that process more. So just to reassure you, I've got a meeting with him next week where we can get the details of those people who failed, go back to them, sit down with them, explain where we've gone wrong and how the application has worked against them, how they can fill it out better, or we can change our application, like Mr. Garvin's process is designed to do, to hopefully make us more representative when the next round of applications
Just go back to say that when I had the conversation with Mr. Gargan and the BPA, it's very clear that the answer is yes, we have to be more diverse. So that, therefore, if the processes are not working for them, the processes are wrong, and we've got to change that. All right. So yes, and then
Thank you. Hi. I manage a women's only night shelter, and my concern around my role is regarding the women. We start work at 10 o'clock, and sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning your colleagues have been bringing women through our doors. What's going to happen to those women, like now, in the community, who may be facing some form of danger? Where would they go, say 11 o'clock? Tonight we're open, but what used to happen, your colleagues would ring us and say, we've got a lady here, can we bring her over? And if we had the space, it would be always yes. What will happen to those women now who are facing, or young girls? For us, this October we'll be open 3 years, and the shift of women that are coming through our doors and young girls are facing more abuse. More, you know, we're talking about girls are being groomed for the sex industry. I mean, we hold the title, we had the banner of Sanctuary, and you know, we sing that very loud. I work for Crisis Centre Ministries, and I also used to work in the Wild Goose and the Drop In there, and we deal with a lot of vulnerable people. You know, we're not talking just people who are homeless or in addiction, we're talking about, or mental health, we're talking about vulnerable people who do, unfortunately, are taken advantage of in the community and sometimes need your support. Where would they go at 9 o'clock tonight? You know, I'm not just talking about the women, I'm asking about the men as well. We need you guys. Where would they really go tonight? And that, you know, I mean, if you can't answer my question now, I really like that to be filtered back, because another thing, what took me by surprise, I didn't even know that your front door were closed at 8 o'clock. That hasn't been even filtered to our agency. So we're signposting, trying to reassure individuals that, you know, if you're in any form of danger, any need, go to Trinity Road Police Station, because everyone knows where you guys are. And to be told only, last week, that you guys, the front door is closing at 8 o'clock, I was really stunned. Because one of the things I do reassure the women, and one of the things that we've always had, when I say thing, one of the working relationships that we've had with Trinity Road Police Station that has always been solid, it's always been grounded, and we've recently, in May, moved over to West Street, and in that short space of time, we've had your head of vice come in for breakfast, and a few other of your PSO and PCs as well. So we don't want to lose that relationship, and we want the women to, we want to reassure the women that you guys are safe people to engage with. You will help them. At the present moment, I'm giving out guff information to them because we weren't even filtered down that you guys were your front door were closed at 8 o'clock.
Firstly, I apologise that information hasn't got to you. That's not acceptable.
To the whole, I think there's other agencies as well.
To the wider community. The door isn't just shut. I appreciate the front office is closed from 8 o'clock, but there are still staff present in the police station. There's still staff at headquarters that can call upon staff to get there quickly if someone needs help. Absolutely, we are here to help the vulnerable. When people are in crisis and they call the police, they need to know that we're going to come. I think we've heard a lot this evening around the concerns around the front office closing and not being a 24-hour facility. That's something that we need to take away. But if someone comes to the police station and uses the hatch phone, then we will get someone to them very quickly. So it's not a place of, well, the front door's shut, there's no one in, we can't do anything for you till 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Absolutely. If it's an emergency, ring 999. The 101 number is still there. If you come to the police station and make a call, then someone will come out and assist you. And if that's not happening, then I need to know about that. But we have listened to your concerns around the front office and the need for a 24-hour facility, and we need to take that away.
So if someone was in need tonight, they can leave their home and go to Trinity Road and someone will see them.
Well, if they come to Trinity Road and the front office is closed and there's a hatch phone, but equally they could ring the police from wherever they are. And if they haven't got a phone,
so if they haven't got a phone, then they would need to come to the police station.
Yeah, come to the police station, use the phone, and an officer will come down.
Okay.
Or come from where they are.
Sorry, sir.
I'm Tony Lott, chairman of the Bristol Labour Forum, amongst other things. One quick thing, getting back to the custody suite. You said most of the crime is in the Bristol area. How much police time is going to be wasted transporting the prisoners or the people you arrested to go to Patchway or Keynsham when they could have been into Trinity Road and should be back out on the street?
If you talk to many officers, it didn't quite work like that. I think that what will be happening is that the officers will be taking them to Patchway or to Keynsham, but actually because we've got dedicated teams now working in those larger custody suites, that actually it will be much quicker for the officers to be able to drop off the detainee and will be able to get back on the streets. We're also introducing a detainee transportation system where on certain key nights, probably Friday and Saturday night, that there will be a van, particularly in the centre of Bristol, where the detainees can be brought from police officers to that van, and then police staff will then bring the detainees to the police station, which means that those officers, one, can get back onto the street much more quickly, but also can support the victim, because the victims are often in need of help.
My second point is, in Eastville, as with Portland Square, we've had problems for many years with prostitution, and the police have been very supportive to us, and it's been very good. But recently we've noticed that there are more street sex workers out during the day, and I believe that's because there are less people in the vice team now. And what I would like to know is, what is your future plans for the vice team? Because they are essential to, as I say, Portland Square and Eastville.
We were just speaking about vulnerability then, weren't we? And people involved in that industry are extremely vulnerable and need our support. And I don't think there has been a reduction in the vice team. I'll probably look to Ollie in a minute, who oversees that team. There's not been a reduction. Certainly within the operating model structure, we're having to realign some of our resources. And we're trying to move away from having very small dedicated squads that only deal with one thing, and bringing the right people in at the right time. So absolutely, we will still be monitoring vice, enforcing vice, and assisting people away from that profession. Ollie, being the neighbourhood manager for the area, will be overseeing that, and we're bringing specialists to assist with that. So we'll have a new team called Catch and Disrupt. Will be available for proactive operations. Assisting that will be detectives from SELF. So when we bring the specialists in to deal with that situation, then they're there on each occasion to deal with it. Now, I accept the point that perhaps we're not going to deal with prostitution on a one hit and then go away and not come back in. So there will need to be recurrence of that, and that operation will need to keep running. So I suppose my view would be watch this space, and if it's not happening, then you need to come back and speak to me, because it is something that we need to deal with and tackle. I don't know if Ollie wanted to add anything around vice.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Now, I've lived in the area. Sorry. Well, it's better. Right, so, I don't know, can everybody hear me?
You want as closely as possible. Yes.
Right. Now, I've lived in the red light district for 17 years. And over the last few weeks, since this operation, whatever it was, it went quiet, and now we've got them back. And it can be all hours of the day. Over the years, I've had various, as I say, run-ins with the girls. People won't come and visit me because they get asked, there's punters around, the various activities that go on with the girls. Several times this week, prostitutes. Now they're vulnerable people. So isn't it about time that we stopped this cat and mouse game where we ring up the police, there's a girl there. Do you know, today, 3 times I've seen the same girl there who's had a warning. Now this girl goes back 14 years ago. So what is going on? It's not good enough. I've had a girl try and get in my car. I've had a girl say to me, what was it? Well, what do you look like a man for? That's when I had short hair. There's a single mother that's lived for 18 months with a 13-year-old girl who dresses like a boy, like a tomboy. Mum, what are those girls doing on the street? And that prostitute is in her porch. Excuse me. Isn't it about time that this law was changed and protect those girls? Because that we know that they are vulnerable people, they are abused as children, and they're also abused by the men that go with them. And the area any women is abused because the men that come into the area are abusive people.
As I said, and you said yourself, they're very, very vulnerable. Often there's
what is happening
well,
with it is not good enough. What's going to happen in the future? What's going to happen in March when it all changes? What you just said, what's happening there? Remember 10 years ago, almost to the day, 11 years, when one young prostitute was found in the lake in Bristol in the Eastwood Park. I used to walk my dog.
And that's exactly why we're committed to tackling this.
Well, I hope I can see changes.
Well,
and
the focus, a lot of the focus of our activity is actually on the perpetrators.
So
a lot of the focus of our activity is on those perpetrators, the people that are coming past the curb crawls, people that are driving by, and that's why there's a dedicated team at the moment that focuses on that, and that's something that we can't relax on. There's a number of change courses that take place and there's a number of prosecutions that take place. I haven't got the figures to hand, but there's been a large number of curb crawls prosecuted this year. I think it's 167 year to date. And we continue to do that work. And at the same time, we have a vice liaison officer who's working with the young women to try and get them out of that position, because absolutely they're vulnerable. As I say, with drug addictions, we're trying to get them, similar to the way we probably deal with prolific offenders, pathways out of that lifestyle.
It's not working.
Well, it's probably wider than just a policing issue as well, isn't it? There's an enforcement side, but there's also an educational side as well, which we need to tackle as well, because it's not acceptable for people to go out in that way and behave.
It's not acceptable when you walk up the street and I get asked, are you in business tonight, love?
No,
and it's not acceptable when I'm waiting for somebody and I get a prostitute have a go at me because I might be on her pitch, excuse me.
And that is where, and I'm sure you do this, but you need to report that into us so that we can respond accordingly.
Can I just say that I did introduce myself earlier, sorry, I'm Ollie Cosgrove, I'm the Navy Inspector for Trinity, and we work very closely with my colleague up in Fish Ponds, who we share the issue of on-street sex work. One thing about the way that the police is changing to our operating model, but one very key thing that we've kept is Tina Newman, who is our vice liaison officer. So she will remain in post. She will remain working at Trinity Road with us.
Sorry, what was the name?
Holly Cross Road.
Holly?
Yeah.
Cross Road.
Cross Road. I'll speak to her. So, as Mr. Riley said, really, these are the most vulnerable women in our society. We work really closely with the 125 project, which is really helpful in step away from the streets. And they've been successful in getting a number of women this year to escape the streets. And what we cannot do is just criminalise these ladies who have 99% of them are addicted to Class A drugs and alcohol. They're really chaotic lifestyles. What we have to do is target the men and take away the business for these ladies. So actually their only route then is to escape the streets, is to get into employment, and the 125 project, the Prince's Trust, and Bristol will assist with that. So that's the way we work. Operation Valero is the one I think you were talking about, where we've got some great big signs with lights on saying that if you curb in this area, you will be arrested.
You live in the red light district, and then I don't get females come to visit me. Friends come to visit me, male people also, and they get accosted by the girls. It's not working. I'm sorry.
And I fully appreciate that point, and it's a very tricky subject for us to address, and we're doing everything we can. We're constantly looking at new ways
to change the law and get it legalised so the girls can be protected properly and not be abused by these people.
That's a debate for the time thing. That's a meeting to talk with after rather than just what I speak to after is something that is very close to our heart, and we're working extremely hard to try and help these girls and prosecute these men and things acceptable to cover all hours of the day and night and make people's lives miserable.
Thank you. And there's also conversations going on with various MPs as well about having a look at the legislation so that we start tackling the perpetrator rather than the girls. This gentleman here is just, and then afterwards it will be the gentleman at the back.
In relation to the further question, you said that you want to be ruthless and bring all these agencies together. Like, absolutely, that's fine, and we agree that what happened was unacceptable. But how could you make sure that there is a fine line between being ruthless and making sure that justice should prevail? Because I think what happened in Rotherham was totally abhorrible, because some of the very agencies that are supposed to protect vulnerable children failed them. So how could you make sure that there is a fine line between being ruthless to tackle those issues and to make sure that justice should prevail?
I don't think it is a fine line. I think we can be ruthless in driving down and finding out what is going on in Avon and Somerset, but obviously what's really key is that we use the criminal justice system, and I don't want to get to the point where that line that I read out as far as from the Rotherham report can be accused of the Avon and Somerset police that says that they did not take the voice of the victim seriously.
Sorry, Sue, could you just, we didn't hear,
Sorry.
I didn't hear what he said. It's not the microphone, I just couldn't hear across.
Okay, you can just speak a bit louder.
Okay, I said yes. You said that you wish that it will never happen, or it will never be found to happen here. So what actions will you take that if you find some of the very agencies in Bristol have failed our children, the very vulnerable children of Bristol? What will you do in that case?
I hold the Chief Constable to account, so that's how I hold the police to account. And two, if there are agencies that I feel that are in any way covering up the sorts of things that have been covered up in Rotherham, then I will go public on it, and so that people will know.
Thank you very much.
Okay, this gentleman at the back.
Good evening, Matt.
I think you need to hold the mic as close to that.
My name is Anthony John Burton. I'm the chairman of HBA, Highridge, Bishopsworth and Headley Park. We run an elderly people's home, which you yourself, ma'am, have visited some 2 years ago. We find ourselves with some 38 elderly ladies ranging from the age of 60 to 95. We take them on day trips. We've got a class section for them. They do cars, they do knitting, and all sorts of activities. It has been reported that our two Conservative councillors had a meeting with yourself some 3 or 4 weeks ago, where it was stated that Bishopsworth Police Station was in fact closing down, and they were hoping to move into 106 Cutler Road, which is our little office, which used to be a rental office. Can you confirm that is this right, or because if this does happen, that means we've got 38 elderly women out on the street with no other form of housing or office stay. We've been doing this now for some 5 years, and we just recently now opened up a surgery on Tuesday, whereby people in the community can come in and get advice for various all sorts of things, helping them to fill in forms, antisocial behaviour, reporting the situation to the council. If the police do take this office over, it means that you've nowhere else to go. Can you confirm that this could happen?
I don't know the detail of that, but it sounds like there's been some cross wires. I don't think we'd want to take over a building. We haven't got the money to start picking up new premises. Bishopsworth Police Station is going to close. The neighbourhood staff from there are now working from Broadby Road. Probably what we're looking to do is find a place where perhaps one of those officers could stop during the course of their shift to use the toilet, maybe put a computer in there, but it's not a police station that we'd be looking to open. I think it may well be that we would want our beat managers to drop in there and to be that point of interaction with the community rather than it being, I don't know the detail, I can find out for you, but that sounds more likely what it's going to be.
But will there be a police officer there on duty, like 24/7?
No, not from that point. The officers would parade from Broadby Road. If we spoke about mobile data, we'd get them out of the station as quickly as possible and they'll be working on their beat. If they need to use the toilet or something, then they want to come back to some points. And it may be that community centre is the place where they go.
That, but we're in a community, there's big communities where there is quite a bit of a drug problem. Now, if we've got police cars outside of our office with policemen coming in and out, people that are coming to us and giving us information we can pass on to the police, they're not going to come in there because they're being intimidated by the drug dealers and so on and so forth. So we're in a sticky situation.
Well, I think, again, I'm not citing the detail of that particular premise. If it's not suitable, then we won't use it.
Right.
Absolutely. If it's not going to be a suitable premise and you're not happy with that, we're not going to force ourselves on anybody. Quite often we're using supermarkets or libraries or other places where the community are going to congregate. So if it's not suitable, be reassured from me, we won't be using it.
So tomorrow when I meet these ladies, I can pass one on.
Perhaps we could touch base officers, but it's news to me, and I'm not looking to upset anybody in the community by saying, oh, the police are going to be here all the time. Absolutely not.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The gentleman in the jacket.
I suspect my voice is quite loud anyway, but I'll try and use this.
Can
you hear me all right? I don't want to be nitpicking, but can we go back to the Rotherham thing? We've had Rochdale 1, we've had Rochdale 2 or Burnley, then we've had Rotherham. These things went on for an awful long time, and I do appreciate we're asking the police force here, from what we've heard tonight, we demand an awful lot of you, including all of the languages. However, the Rochdale, Rotherham and the sexual abuse thing has been going on for an awful long time. And I would like to ask you, Commissioner, exactly what you've done in relationship to talking to the Chief Constable, not only holding him to account for the future, but actually what you've put in place to determine whether there are any communities which are abusing people on such a vast scale, and whether or not it's not just one community, it could be across communities, because these people were trafficked, and I can't believe they weren't trafficked to a certain degree to Bristol. I really want to pin down what you've done so far. Okay. On that, please.
Okay. I work quite closely with the child safeguarding chairs. so the child safeguarding chairs and the adult safeguarding chairs across the Avon and Somerset. I work very closely with the Public Protection Unit in the Constabulary to make sure that there are enough resources to be tackling these issues, because you know, I'm obviously aware of some of the things that have been happening operationally, but what I do not know, and obviously Rotherham say they do not know, that it was on such a grand scale, and that is not acceptable, and that is a reason why I'm trying to get everyone together, all in the same room, so that people do not pass the buck, cannot say that they didn't know what was going to happen, because at this point I want to make sure that if there were any reports, and I've had the assurance from the Chief Constable that there were no reports that have happened that have been squashed as they were in Rotherham.
Will you be, sorry, on that point, would you be able to announce at some stage that it has been investigated, put people's mind at rest? Because I know there's a connection here, but the points you're making about, so some of my colleagues, I sit on the Greater Fish Ponds Neighbourhood Partnership Board, and we do have ladies there who've not had it for 18 or 20 years, but 30 years with people up against the wall doing their business. So we know these issues do go on and on and on, and what I'm afraid of is that where we thought we were tackling, and I think there's been an awful lot of improvement, by the way, Chief Superintendent, in generally speaking, in some areas, but I'm afraid that something behind the scenes might sort of blow us all off course, and I would like to think that, Commissioner, you would be able to report at some stage, whether through the media or that you've had meetings and you're sure as far as you can be that such a thing isn't going on. Just reassure people in this area.
I certainly will be able to give that assurance, but also I need to be very clear that if there are prosecutions or there are some things that are going through court, then I would not be able to go public on those. Okay. This poor gentleman at the back that I obviously have ignored so far, and I do apologise.
Thank you. You said there's a budget shortfall and Trinity needs to be, if it's not being closed, it's being moved. You also said, though, that Trinity is 50% free, 50% open, like it's only working at 50% capacity. Has there been any consideration into commercialising the slack in the building for other departments of government or private sector? We've heard tonight that the Border Force need a presence there, maybe Bristol Council, they may have some interest there.
Please be reassured, I've contacted many agencies, many different departments, and clearly the Home Secretary this week has announced around Blue Light Services collaborating together. I mean, absolutely, that's what's the word I would use, very keen to get some other partners to come and share with us. When I say it's 50% inactive, it's not at the moment. The custody suite is still in use. But actually on the footprint of the land, half of the land at the moment is custody use. So please be reassured I am working with as many different partners as possible to try and identify some suitable tenants or people that would come and work with us at that location.
Is that going to be formalised, or is that just going to be, you know, bag packet estimations?
No. We are opening as many discussions with as many organisations as possible. I can't say that they're all coming to try and bite our hand off to come into Trinity Road, but we are looking at all the options to say, so if we could stay there, then that would satisfy a lot of a lot of the views that have been raised here today. But it is those discussions are ongoing, but I can't offer any more than that.
And it's not on the back of a fact packet either, just to reassure you. It's all public sector organisations are shrinking actually. And there is a group where all public sector bodies meet, called the Property Board, to exactly establish where we need to be best placed, what land is available, what sites are closed, and what sites could be used.
It sounds like a perfect time to be doing it. If other departments are closing buildings,
exactly. But at the same time, everybody's shrinking. So it's with that in mind. But we are looking at all opportunities. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Clearly, a lot of the difficult decisions you're having to make are driven by budget and financial shortage of money. I wondered if you still have a dialogue are able to have a dialogue with the government about the historic problem of the Avon share of distribution from central government, because this is something I raised through my MP a few years ago actually, and I had a letter back from some minister, I don't remember who it was now.
Probably no one else does either. So
What he said was, yes, he recognised that there was this historic shortage in the amount of money that Avon got for its size, but they couldn't put it right because it would mean taking some money from somebody else, which seemed to me a terrible cop-out. And I just think that you shouldn't let this matter drop.
Trust me, we don't. There isn't a minister that I don't come into contact with that doesn't know my view that it's absolutely outrageous that Avon and Somerset do not get the sufficient provision of funding that other forces get. We are the second worst affected force in the country, and basically when a lot of the allocation of what we should get goes to smaller forces. So in places like Cumbria, they get quite a lot of what I consider Avon and Somerset money, and I have no problem telling Cumbria's PCC whenever I see him. But the issue is that the existing government said that they were going to bring in a new formula. They then have waited and dithered for so long now that they've now pushed it into the long grass, and it will now not be considered now until after the next general election. But it is outrageous, and I can assure you that what is called the damping formula is something that is if we got our fair allocation, then we would be in a different position than we are now. So because we have a double whammy, we have the cuts and we've not got our fair allocation of resources.
It's been £20 million a year in essence. It's a lot of money. Thank you very much for writing, and I'd urge all of you to write to your MPs really about that.
Just one last question. I was at the county ground, and after the meeting I spoke to somebody who's done the same job as I've done, and that was custody sergeant, and we were in agreement on one particular thing. Can you give here at this meeting a categorical, we will not breach pace, which is a very serious question I'm asking you. When you deprive somebody of their liberty and you take them to a police station, that's one thing. When you take them to a van that is parked up somewhere in the city and wait to make a decision about when do we drive to Patchway, when do we do this. No, Sue, I know you're shaking your head, but well, I'm going to challenge it because pace is very serious. And if you, sir, as the Chief Superintendent, can say here that you will not ever be in breach of pace, then I'd like to hear it as everybody else would. And we don't want to have in the future something go wrong and then you say lessons will be learned. We get that all the time. So can you give that assurance tonight?
I can't
please?
ever say categorically we're never going to breach pace, can we? I was a custody sergeant myself at Robbie Road for 18 months. Like yourself. So we can't categorically say for all officers it's never going to be breached. What was the specific part of your question about the detainee transport solution?
Yeah.
Well, perhaps we can speak, I'm quite happy to discuss it now, but what was the actual, what's the concern around the detainee transport solution?
It's one thing to go straight to the police station and you deal with the matter. If you're going to go and take somebody to a van that is parked up, maybe under the guidance of G4S or somebody, you would then detain somebody, a little cell that they're locked up in. They're not at that stage guilty of anything. They've just been arrested. The police have a responsibility to every person that they arrest for whatever the circumstances. And that has to be absolutely upheld at all times.
There absolutely has to be a duty of care for those arrested. I think perhaps there's been a misunderstanding of how we're going to use that detainee transport solution. There's no point in having a van that's just waiting around the whole time. It'll be staffed by Avon and Somerset staff. It's not going to be staffed by private companies. And my expectation is sometimes during the nighttime economy in the city centre we can make more than one arrest at an incident. So 4 or 5 people can be arrested at a large disorder. And that's the occasion when we don't want to send 5 police vehicles with 10 officers up the road when we could use one vehicle with properly equipped staff who know the law.
Yeah, but Pat, sorry, I'll finish on this. I don't want to take up anybody else's time. I do appreciate somebody's looking for a question. But that's an operational matter. Deciding to close a police station and go to a van on the city centre somewhere, that's operational. That doesn't necessarily mean it's lawful. That is my point. Is it lawful to do that? If you can say it is, then fine, I'll go away happy. But I've got serious concerns, and I've raised it, and I'm entitled to raise it. And I'm raising it because it might be your son or daughter, or somebody you know, might even be you, get arrested. And to be stuck in a van somewhere, you've got to ask, is it lawful? That's what
When you say stuck in a van, do you think as it's going to remain stationed in the city centre till the van is full? We can't keep... No. If someone's arrested...
Is it going to go up and down?
If someone's arrested and they've been placed in the van, they'll be taken to the custody centre. They're not going to be sitting, waiting for 2 or 3 hours till the van's full and we take it away. That's not what's going to happen. And I can tell you that now.
That's all counts.
Thank you. We've got... Is anyone who hasn't asked me some question that's waiting on it?
It's only a quick one. Could you tell us what's going to happen to persons detained or arrested, whether they're charged or set free with no charge in the morning? How are they supposed to come back, assuming they were arrested in central Bristol, from Patchway, which we're told is 7 miles away, Keynsham, which I believe is further away? How the hell does anybody come back from Bridgewater? And will you be paying their fares? In which case, will that not be a waste of public money?
The situation now is that people that get arrested in Bristol city centre don't always get detained in Bristol. If our cell space is full, sometimes people are taken to Yeovil, they're taken to Newport, they're taken to Swindon. So, actually, that issue is live now.
Where they were arrested.
Well, we're never going to release somebody from custody who is vulnerable, who cannot make their way back. I can't sit here and say we're going to take everybody home at the taxpayer's expense. Because lots of people will be collected, some people will go directly to court, some people will bail out and don't want the police to take them back. But we will not be releasing people who are vulnerable, who are either through age or through some sort of mental vulnerability, that we're just going to throw them out in the custody units and say goodbye. We're going to make sure they're taken home.
Both ways back in Bristol involves in a carriageway. That's surely not safe for either drivers or...
Exactly. So if someone can't make their way back, there's no one to collect them, and they can't make their own means, then we would have to look at that on a case-by-case basis. But I can't categorically say we'll take everybody home, because at the moment you don't necessarily get taken to the immediately nearest custody unit. It's going to be one where there is a space. If that unit is full, sometimes Trinity Road is completely full, then we have to take them somewhere else.
I'm not aware of it. I have had the hospitality of your lodgings from time to time.
Is the unit outside Rolls-Royce? Is that the new unit?
Yes. It is, yeah. Yeah.
So everybody knows where it is. It's right outside Rolls-Royce. Nice walk from the city centre for anybody who's recovering from alcohol. Sorry, I just can't agree that we've got to treat everybody with kid gloves. You shouldn't have them detained unnecessarily for any length of time. But if they have done something to be arrested or to be detained, I think we have to give the police some freedom to be able to work. Otherwise, we're just going to be having more budget cuts because we don't allow the police to work. I cannot understand that we've got to take people and treat them with kid gloves. We've got to be reasonable about it. If they're causing problems in fish ponds, or if they're causing problems in the city centre, and they are detained lawfully and properly, I think it's only fair that they should be a little bit inconvenienced. And I'm sorry if that gets a bit upset with some of you guys, but I think we're just going a bit too far. Otherwise, they'll always be going outside that lady's house and approaching them, and she won't be able to do anything about it for the next 18 years.
The police have a duty of care. The police have a duty of care to all our citizens, and whether that is detainees or not. Okay, well, sorry, is that a question?
Yes, I mean, I can think about a drunken woman, but maybe it can be a bit shouty during the night. Maybe if she's left a patchway maybe 4 o'clock at night, she tries to walk home, she tries to reach home, so she gets raped. That's not something that should have happened if you kind of run away. That's the kind of situation where
I think
gentlemen, but people can't be left in.
No, and I don't think that is what John is saying. I think that it will be done by a case by case, and their vulnerabilities will be assessed. Okay, well, thank you very much for taking time. I know that you all lead very busy lives, but we do appreciate it, because it's only by having forums like this can we actually hear your concerns. And I've heard your concerns very loudly and very clearly tonight, and I appreciate that you taking the time. So thank you.
Thanks very much.